everything that is worthwhile takes time. Everything you show me fast money, I show you losses that are fast. You show me slow growth, tortoise versus the hare. That's the one I'm betting on every single, because I just know, like, having started as many companies, it takes time.
Hey, Jack Lehr down in Lehr Podcast. So this gentleman came into my world in 2016, and he certainly didn't know that. But anyway, I got introduced to this amazing gentleman, and he's well known by a lot of folks in the real estate world. I'm super grateful that we get to have Tom Ferry with us today. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, Jack, thanks for having me, man. And yes, 2016, buddy, we've had a nice run together.
It's been beautiful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Like in 2016, we had a brokerage, a real estate investment company, and I got hit up by this gentleman that said, "Hey, do you want to maybe?" They were talking about coaching and maybe taking the business to the next level. And I didn't really understand much about the brokerage side, because I understood like the real estate investment side. And I was like, okay, let's learn about this person. And they said, it's Tom Ferry Coaching. This gentleman, his name is Tom Ferry, and they have some programs out there that, may match up with what you're looking to do to take your business to the next level.
Right.
And quite frankly, Tom, I didn't know who you were.
Yeah.
I must have been hiding under a rock or something, but that was my introduction to Tom. And then I went to an event that you were hosting down in Baltimore, Maryland. And I got to meet you briefly, but also learning about your coaching program. And that's how I got to come into your world. But I'd like to maybe start there. Let's pretend nobody ever heard of Tom Ferry.
Yeah.
And in your words, who is this guy?
So, classic serial entrepreneur, kicked out of 4 high schools, graduated with a GED, loved my parents, kicked out of both of their houses, divorced family. 6 years old, Jack, my mother said, "Your dad and I are getting a divorce." And I said, "How can I help?" And I would say, if somebody asked me what's going to be on my, tombstone, it would be that question: how can I help? Right. Okay. Whether today it's answering, thousands of questions on Instagram or speaking all over the world, or just in the content that I put out, my central theme is whoever does the most good is going to win. So, today, what does that look like? We have 237 business coaches in 7 countries. We've got clients in 29 countries around the world. The most notable, recognizable, rock star individual agents, teams, up and comers, emerging rock stars, people that are super comfortable just doing $20 million a year in sales, and people that want to do $20 million a day in sales, and everything in between, CEOs of companies, mortgage companies, tech companies, and all that stuff. So, the simple fact is, sitting here now 33 years into the business, what I really am, Jack, and this, is I'm a DJ. Like a DJ, like back in the old days when we listened to radio and you were always waiting to hear the greatest hits of the time, the K-Rock Top 100, whatever it was in your town. My client, Tim Smith, who's, 2 or 3 in the world for Coldwell Banker, said, "You are a DJ of all the best agent stuff, and you break out all the right songs when we need it in the market that we're in." Yeah. That's probably my superpower. If I had a genius, it would be that I'm able to synthesize a lot of information and then break it down in a way to people that is easy to understand and actionable, so they can get results. And it's a funny thing, Jack, and this, when people start to get results, their willingness to do more gets amplified. But when people are stuck, they're really nervous about trying anything new, anything outside of the box. So hopefully we can unpack some of that stuff today.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think the thing that you just shared there was something that when lockdown took place, because, Pennsylvania was one of the most locked down states, right, like New York, right, Hawaii, just the foolishness that was going on. And there was this big mindset shift, and you were talking about loading the cannons.
Yeah.
And I listen to you every Dagburn day, the KCM stuff that you're putting out there, Keeping Current Matters, and just bringing a lot of the right people alongside of you during that time, because that DJ was playing at the most at the highest level during anything that I've ever experienced. And I think that's beautifully put the way you said it.
Yeah.
Because like our team did the things you were saying. I was like, man, and there's some stuff that I didn't even agree with. And I was like, we're just going to do this. We're going to make these pivots. Cause that was those were the big words back then. Right.
Right. Look, it was a time of massive uncertainty. The listener knows, more than most. We can look back in our country in the US and say, post 9/11, there was a lot of uncertainty. We can look back and say end of 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's a lot of uncertainty. A couple Fridays ago or whenever, Friday ago when we're recording this, with Silicon Valley Bank going under and then Signature Bank going under, the possibility of contagion in the banking industry freaked a lot of people out. The federal government came in, soothed some feelings, but it doesn't mean that there isn't more uncertainty. And what I tried to do during that time of the early days of the pandemic, because we knew my COO at the time was born and raised in Shanghai. We were watching what was happening in China. We were watching what was happening in February throughout all my clients in Southern Europe. And we knew it was going to hit the US. So literally in a think tank session with my team, I'm like, okay, so we're going to go totally remote. The good news is we've been on Zoom now since 2016. So, we're ready. Like we know what to do. But it begs the question, this, what are the plays we need to run in this environment for us as a company to serve our clients? And then what are the modifications of the plays that our clients can run, specifically like, you and Tom Toole and so many others in Pennsylvania that you guys were basically shut out. We were writing letters to the governor to say,
right,
people can't even leave the lease that's expired, let alone they had a baby and they want to move to a bigger place. The rest of the country is now buying houses in a mad spree, May, June, July, August, 2020, and obviously all the way through, the beginning of 2022. So I think it's a good lesson for the listeners to understand that the only thing that is constant is change, that there are fundamentals in every business that are always going to apply, but you've got to modernize them, right? You got to be willing to pivot and adjust. And hopefully it doesn't take a pandemic or some tragedy in your life that gets you off your butt and actually into action. Hopefully you can just take some inspiration today and say, okay, I'm going to go try that. And again, just, success begets success, right?
Yeah.
You get a win, you get another win, you get another win. And the next thing you know, your standards have been raised, your structures start to change, right? You're making more money and we're off to the races.
Yeah. Those values and standards adjust. And when adversity strikes, man, you really find out who belongs, who doesn't.
Ain't that the truth? Who your friends are.
True.
Right? Who your friends are, who's really got your back. 1000%.
Yeah. You discover that tribe that you have. I think I posted something recently about, when you speak your truth, you attract your tribe, and then you truly that's when you truly find out who is in your corner.
Right. Yeah.
So Tom, and we're going to get into some of this other, some of the stuff to help others, but background on Tom. So you talked a little bit about, your a little bit of your growing up, your childhood. Like, were you raised with a silver spoon?
No, most people would know my pops, who is an icon, right? A legend, one of my heroes, one of my mentors, one of my closest friends. He's been in this space for almost 50 years. So think of Dave Leniger, who started Remax 50 years ago, or Art Bartlett, Century 21. Like he's in that camp of iconic people in the real estate space. But he didn't become who he was until I was when I joined him at 18, he had a little business doing about $3 million a year in revenue. And when I left, call it 12, 13 years later, we were doing $45 million a year in revenue. So I would say, 96, 97, 98, 99, he was really on the map, right? But, that was for him. Think about it. That was a couple decades into his business.
Yeah.
You and I both know everything that takes time. Let me restate this. Everything that is worthwhile takes time. Everything you show me fast money, I show you losses that are fast. You show me slow growth, tortoise versus the hare. That's the one I'm betting on because I just know, like having started as many companies, it takes time. So, joined a family business, did everything, everything I could to support my dad, to support my siblings, right? To help him drive more revenue, to optimize the business. And back then there wasn't like a playbook, Jack. We were creating stuff. Like business coaching as we know it in real estate did not exist until a day when we were in San Francisco. I want to say early 91, late 1990. And my dad said from the stage, if I called you once a week and said, do your job and how are your numbers and what's going on and how can I help? And he made that statement, and literally, I don't know, 300 people rushed back to me because I was back there, as the guy helping with customer service. And they're like, here's my card. When you guys have that, sign me up. Like that's how it all started, right? So it was the willingness back then to innovate, like it is the willingness for me today to continue to listen to your customers and figure out what are their problems. And can you bring real solutions to their problems? And if you can, and then you can scale yourself, you could build a pretty substantial business.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks that look at you now, they look at it's that instantaneous stardom or success, because they don't realize the 33 years ago-ish when you started, like you're scrapping, you're clawing, you're doing anything to create revenue to build your business, but they see the #1 coaching company in the world and Tom Ferry leading it, and they go, oh my gosh, like that guy silver spoon. That's why I wanted to ask that question, because a lot of people make that assumption. Yeah.
I'm doing everything in my power to not have my kids have a silver spoon in their mouth. I mean, it's interesting. I'm so blessed that I get to meet with so many cool people, Jack. And most of my mentors, men and women that have become wildly successful, came from nothing, right? And they took advantage of like opportunities. They were willing to take risks. They were like the person listening right now, like, he or she knows it is who takes the most calculated risks, who asks the most questions, who's the most curious, who's willing to discover the problem, who's willing to operationalize, solving those problems, who's willing to repeat it till you get it right, who's willing to not quit. That's all it is for me, right? When I started my business 20 years ago, I remember looking at my wife and saying, hey, I'm going to go talk to my mentor, Bill Mitchell, about, just getting this business started. And I came home with $55,000 in monthly reoccurring expense. I leased a space and hired 11 people. She's like, I thought you were just going to go meet with Bill and talk about how to get started. I'm like, well, we got started. But was that a calculated risk? Yes. I came from running a $45 million a year business. Yeah. I had to reset my expectations that I was starting over, that I was going to do I was going to coach, I was going to do seminars, I was going to do office meetings. I mean, what's funny, Jack, is even today, like I've definitely figured out, sort of what my superpower is as a CEO, but I still find myself doing some of those things that I started doing 20 years ago, just maybe a bigger audience, maybe a nicer, circumstance, maybe a higher fee. But when you figure out what you're really good at, you got to do that. It's like you figure out a play that works, you run that play until the defense stops you or, the market stops you. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I think, look, coming from a football background, the one thing that I always find so funny is that offensive coordinators are the smartest people and they overcomplicate it. So let's just say you're running a simple dive play and you get 7 yards, and they feel so compelled to run a reverse the next play when they could just keep running the dive play that works and get you to 3 to 5 to 7 yards.
Right.
And that's we complicate things, right?
Well, and again, you're talking about entrepreneurs, you're talking about all my friends in real estate that are always looking for the next shiny penny. And I'm like, what's really shiny right now? Having meaningful conversations with people in your database and scheduling appointments. Like that's really, like, people say, you got to get back to the basics in this market. I'm like, man, the basics in real estate are like, wake up late, slightly hungover, get to the office at 10:30, don't look at the MLS, don't know the daily numbers of what's happening inside your marketplace, and then figure out what you're going to do for lunch. That's the basics of real estate. That's why the failure rate is so high and nobody sells any houses. There's 1.6 million licensed agents in the US, right? Per the MLS. NAR is going to have a different set of numbers, but remember, New York City isn't a part of NAR, right? Like it's a different animal, right? As an example. But the top 400,000 control 71% of all the business. Mm. And then you look at like the top 1%. If you're in the top 1% of your MLS, you're averaging 100 listings sold a year. I mean, it's the rich and the rest, my friends. You want to avoid the basics in real estate and do the advanced. The advanced is work my database, have conversations, do great listing launches, be really good negotiator, have 5 or 6 different ways that I'm generating clients at all times because I can't be myopic in this market. I've got to be modern. I've got to be on the platforms where all the eyeballs are. I've got to get more attention, but then I've got to focus on how many appointments I'm getting. Because the only way we make money in this business is you get in front of people that want to buy and sell real estate and they say yes to you, right? I'm rousing people every day. I'm like, show me your calendar. Show me your calendar. And Jack, they'll pull up their calendar, especially like on a Zoom session like that. I'm like, pull up your calendar. I'm like, see all those empty spots you have in your calendar? Yeah. Get on the phone, call past clients and say, ready? Screenshot their home on Zillow. This is a good little marketing hack. Ready, Jack? Yeah. Screenshot their home on Zillow and then literally just texted you and say, Jack, I was thinking about you the other day. I saw your home price on Zillow. What do you think of this price? Little emoji, like one of these emojis, like, oh, like, you know what? Right? Let me know your thoughts. Bang. Do 10 of those a day for the next 50 days. You just told 500 people, hey, Zillow's probably wrong with your price. What are your thoughts? You will have meaningful conversations. That's where all the money is. All the best people just have more conversations and they go on more appointments. Period. End of story.
Well, think about the industry.
Excuse my soapbox rant. I apologize.
No, it's beautiful. But to think about the industry that's rather broken. Like we're in an industry that, it's pretty simple to get a real estate license. Yeah. Easy entry. The barriers are super low. And there's a lot of brokenness. And meaning when you have that many people that are failing within 5 years, like what, 91%? Certainly it's pretty doggone high. If you have all those folks that are failing and they're taking advice from the 91%, which happens quite often because you get to experience that, like, well, yeah, my boss or my broker told me to do this. And then you look at what the broker's done and what the team has done. And you're like, okay, so you're taking advice because he or she has a brokerage license and you're following their best practices for failure.
No, I don't want to knock any broker or any manager out there because I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they got.
Yeah.
And yet I do agree with you. One of the fundamental challenges of this industry, it's kind of twofold. First, if we lack the exposure of what is actually working, right? If we're not staying up with the times, both in and out of the industry, right? Like I don't really want to talk to a bunch of agents about SEO. I want to go talk to somebody at Google about SEO, right? I don't want to talk to an agent about how they got, 500 people to watch an Instagram reel. I want to go talk to somebody that's getting 5 million views. I want to go to YouTube and go, Mr. Beast, what's working? I don't want to go to me and say what's working. You with me on this? So you got to go in and outside of the industry. And I would make the argument today that if you're not spending an hour every single day getting informed on what's happening, what's working around the world, whether it's reading blogs, watching videos, checking out podcasts. If you're not doing that, you're not keeping your pulse on, it's the zeitgeist, right, Jack? It's the zeitgeist. It's what is on the minds of customers today. Yeah. And then what are the best companies around the world in and out of real estate doing to create enough attention to create know, like, and trust so I get the opportunity to have a conversation and maybe schedule an appointment. So that's one. But the other thing that I keep thinking about is it's a bit of a tragedy that when you take your real estate test, someone doesn't say to you, 87% failure rate in the first 5 years. Mm-hmm. The average agent is going to do, coming out of this class. If they actually said like something like this, hey, look down the row, right? There's 10 of you in this row. Yeah. Only 2.5 of you will be in the business in the next 5 years. The rest of you will spend money on dumb shit. You will get involved in things that don't work. You will ask 3 office mates that never sell houses how to become successful, and you will fall into that same trap. It's the old line. It was James Clear who said it, and I've said it so many times that I now feel like it's mine. It's like one of those kind of like wonderful, from Atomic Habits. He said, we rarely rise to our ambitions. We rarely rise to our ambitions. We always fall back to our systems, our structure, and our standards. Our systems, our structure, and our standard. I know for your listener, Jack, if they said, okay, systems, Anything that I do should be automated. There should be zero memory in this game. I should never have to say, how do I launch a listing? I should have an SOP for a listing launch. I have an SOP for opening up an escrow, an SOP for my post-close transaction, sort of, way that I help and love on my clients. I should never have to think about, oh, do I need to send an email to my database this week? Everything should be automated. Everything should have a system. Everything should be up and visual around me. Hey, here's my monthly marketing calendar. Here's all the initiatives. Here's everything we're working on, because there's so many things to be distracted around in this world, in this time, starting with this wonderful device that we're all obsessed with, our phones. So systems, that's the first part. And I'm preaching to the choir here. But the second one is structure. So I have an older son, Jack. You probably met Michael. So Michael is one class away from graduating, right? Getting out of college. So I call him this morning during spring break and I say, how is your Italian 2 going? So for context, he took Italian 1, I think in his freshman year of college. Oh. And now here he is. If he doesn't pass Italian 2, he doesn't graduate. Oh. Think about that. Like, first of all, just the lunacy of the education system, but that's a whole separate, like the fact that I've got to get Italian 2 to get my history degree and my minor in comp sci to move on with the rest of my life is kind of nuts. But here's what I'm telling him. If you don't have the structure in place to do what you know you have to do, most human beings won't do it. Let me say it to you again. If you don't have the structure in place to follow through and do the stuff you know you have to do, most human beings won't do it. So how are you going to put the structure in place? Could it be, Jack, can I do like a teaching moment here? Is that okay?
I'm open. Yes.
On my roadmap tour, this is what I tell people. Do you have a child? Is that child, like, can you speak to that child? Can they talk back to you? Does that child want anything? That child could be 40 or 4, right? Because everybody's got a kid at a certain age, right? And I say, you go to your children and you say, tell me something you want more than anything else right now. And they're like, oh my goodness, I want an Xbox. I want a trip to Orlando. I want this new dress. And I say, great. If dad books 10 listing appointments this month, I will buy it for you at the end of the month, regardless of the results of my appointments. Now, what does a 7-year-old girl do the moment you say you're getting this special something at the end of the next 30 days, or in 2 months if you're really smart, or in 3 months, because delayed gratification is a really good thing. It's a really good thing. We're so used to free, perfect, and now that we've lost this sense of like persistence and grind and a willingness. So I say, in 90 days, this happens. In 6 months, this happens. And then guess what happens, Jack? They're gonna be walking by every day. Mom, did you book another appointment? Mom, I was on my big wheel and I saw for sale by owner and I knocked on their door and I got you an appointment. Like, they're going to do whatever it takes. And it's the willingness to put your ass on the line. That's structure. It's the willingness to make a public declaration to your database. I'm going to help, X number of people this year buy and sell real estate, right? Every time you see me, ask me where I'm at year to date. How many times have we seen this where I put people on stage that said, I'm going to go on 100 appointments in 9 months, and they let their entire database know. They turn it into a campaign. They turn it into and when I do, Tom Ferry's got to pay me this much money in this bet, and I'm going to take that money and I'm going to donate it to the local charity. I'm going to give it to the church. And then what happens is your ass is on the line. Your ass is on the line. And the reason why most people don't achieve the goals and dreams and ambitions they have is because they don't have the structure in place to actually do on a daily basis what they have to do. You with me?
Absolutely. I love this. And think about this. Think about, you don't need a sales manager. Your 4-year-old daughter is going to hold your ass accountable because,
heck yes,
right? You don't need to go hire a sales manager. My goodness. Can you imagine showing up at home and you put that out there and you made that commitment to your child, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen?
Oh, listen. Okay. So just in context, this works with my 23 and 21-year-old son. You know, it also works for my wife of 30 years. Hey, honey, I'm grinding right now. This is what I'm thinking about. What would be worthwhile for you? Yeah. I need a little extra juice. I need a little extra motivation to, I'm working harder, Jack, this year. than I did. It feels like almost through the pandemic. And I was working what felt like 7 days a week during the pandemic, trying to help as many clients as I could. But it's different, right? Because now I'm like going on tour and I'm 3 cities in 3 days. Plus I got to be the CEO. Plus I got to create content. Plus I got to keep doing that. Plus I got to be a good husband and go to the gym and everything else, right? Like it's nuts. But when you have the structure in place, you wake up in the morning, you follow the schedule, you meet the trainer, you go to the gym, you get your supplements in, you do all the things you're supposed to do. And it's funny when you actually do the shit you wrote down in your plan, how good things become. Now, I know every listener, you know what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking to you, right? You listening in your car, you on the treadmill right now. Put the structure in place. But the last one is, if you don't raise your standards, Jack, if you don't say, like, people earn exactly what they believe they're worth. Nothing more, nothing less. Right? So you want to raise your income, you got to raise your standards. Because we've all seen the person that goes out and has a great quarter followed by a horrible quarter. And then they go, oh man, I'm going to go from making 100 to 250 just based on this quarter. And then the next 2 quarters suck. And they finish the year at 100 because they've got a $100,000 standard. They got a $50,000 standard. They got a $5 million standard. We earn our standards. So how do you raise your standard? Now go back to what you were saying earlier. This is where having a great sales manager, having an amazing mastermind group, having 2 or 3, you don't need 5. They used to sell, remember they always say, your income's the average of the 5 people you spend the time with. BS. Your income is the average of the 2 most successful people you spend a lot of time with. You spend a bunch of time with, like, it's why I live in the building that I live in. I'm in the gym this morning talking to my buddy. He owns 65 surgery centers. And my other buddy is like a co-owner of the Clippers. Jack, I feel like a loser around these guys. But it elevates my thinking. It makes me realize how much is possible. I talked to my buddy Steve this morning. He started a company, 4 decades ago. It does $4 billion a year in sales. And he is just a regular, dude. He and his wife, they are so nice. But I know for 4 decades, when he got started, interest rates were 18%. Right? He has been through major wars, major challenges, major upsets. And by the way, he's in the gym with me at 6 o'clock in the morning and he's 75. There's a lesson there, people. He's got the structure in place.
The structure, the standards and the values and raising them. Because you got to figure out what's more important to you, actually hitting that goal or doing the things to cheat you from that goal, because most of us find that cheat, including myself. And whether it's being in great shape and going, you know what, I'm just going to have a beer tonight. Yeah. Well, that doesn't align with where I want my values to be. Right. Structure.
For my friend listening, I was up in Park City, man, I don't know, decade and a half ago with my kids when they were young. And me and my pal, he's got 2 daughters. One of them is my goddaughter, right? And I got my 2 sons, and the wives are going to go, have a day on the mountain by themselves. So we're like, let's go to the bowling alley. And I remember the first time we did it, Jack, my son grabs the bowling ball with like 2 hands and he pushes it and it goes right into the gutter, right? And he's like, Dad, bowling sucks. Let's leave. Let's go play video games. Let's do anything other than this, right? Then we look down and like 3 lanes over, they've got these like little like bumpers, right? So you can hit a button, the bumpers go up all the way down the bowling alley. Now the ball doesn't go into the gutter, no gutter ball. So we shift over there and all of a sudden now they throw it down, it bing, 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 bing. Yeah. Did the ball go slow? Did it go right down the middle? Did they have the strength to do it? No, but eventually it knocked out a couple of pins. Yay, Daddy, this is awesome. We love bowling. We need those guardrails in our life. If your listener gets, if you just put up the guardrails to do the shit you said you were going to do, all the things you should do, and guess what? Sometimes you'll work out, make phone calls, go on appointments, and you don't feel like it. Who cares? Do it anyway. It's the compound effect, right? You know that, Jack.
Compound pounding, yes. Yep. And I think I want to go back to something you mentioned a little bit earlier when you talked about the appointments. So, I've been hearing from Tom Ferry saying, get on video, get on video, get on video. And quite frankly, I was trying to help others on my team get on video and they'd never embraced it. So I said, F it, I'm going to be the one that gets on video. So I started doing this and just said, you know what, take responsibility. And one of the other things I heard from you because here's the deal, the video thing, when you stay consistent with your message and stay consistent on video,
yeah,
you earn a lot of trust, and there's a lot of equity that gets built up by being consistent.
yeah.
The other thing that you really had been preaching is get these 2 appointments. And so some people say 1 appointment a week, 2 appointments a week. We came back to our team and said, we were so focused on conversations and connections. And I said, F it. Let's begin almost with the end in mind.
Yeah.
We know we want, converting and doing transactions, but appointments. So we focused heavily on 2 appointments a day, setting 2 appointments a day. And I got to tell you, it has been a life changer, game changer for our team.
Yes. Did you have to cut out some nonsense in the day? Did you have to remove some distractions?
It's more, the team has become way more focused on that goal. Yes. So when they show up and they said, hey, I had 47 conversations, 7 connections, and 2 appointments, I kind of don't give 2 shits about the connections and conversations. I'm concerned about the appointments.
Right.
And by getting focused on that, so you can have more empathetic, curiosity-based conversations to build a relationship. There you go. Exactly what to say. Our buddy, Phil M. Jones.
Yep.
That has made a huge difference in our world, and it can make a difference in everybody that's out there. If you're in sales in any way, goodness, get face-to-face conversations going, right?
So I'd add to that. I talked to Paul Rushforth. I don't know if you met Paul yet. Paul is he's the #1 team in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. So Ottawa is the capital of Canada. So kind of think Washington, DC, kind of government run city. Their transaction count, Jack, is off by 40% year over year. 40% down year over year. Now, Paul's team is only down like 27%, right? So they are, in comparison to the marketplace, killing it. So in a recent strategy session, I was asking he and Jocelyn, and Ange, who help him run the business. And I'm like, all right, so Joss, where are we at on appointments? We had a goal of 1,500 appointments attended. So everywhere around the office, 1,500 appointments attended. He's got 17 people on his team. 3 of them, his 3 most productive people right now, tragically, God bless him, dealing with family members and cancer. So, so they're MIA, right? God bless them, right? We just want them to get healthy and their families to get healthy. So he's down his 3 most productive people, right? We are winning on the marketing front, the inbound lead generation. We are pacing ahead of our goal of 1,500 appointments. And surprise, surprise, he's having a banner year. There's only 2 ways we make money. We have conversations, we go on appointments. Everything else in your schedule is nonsense.
Yeah. And
if you just get that, you're seeing it, right? Like, what are you guys ahead of last year? Are you behind next to last year? Are you on track? Like,
since we made the decision to do that 90 days ago, now we're pacing above. Before we were so focused on conversations and connections, and now we're pacing where we need to be. So that's the thing that Sarah and I had become way less of this feels good company.
What's the
feel
data tell
goods
us?
are the things that kill your business and your profitability and everything. So we're getting more like, we're heavy CSU and we're hardcore accountability. We just want appointments. Like, we're focusing on appointments. And again, just everybody out there, get focused on getting relationships built face to face.
And I would just say to the listener, if you just put a bold appointment set and attended goal up in visual inside your office, right? Like a scoreboard, right? Like, hey, it's currently, 0-0, but I got a goal to score 50 points. It's 50 attended appointments. You probably should break them down by initial buyer consultations and listing appointments. And the moment you get that up in visual, and all of a sudden you're inside your office and somebody walks around and goes, when'd you get in and listen to a Jack Lehr podcast, get all motivated, right? You're like, yes, matter of fact, yes, this is what I'm committed to. And the people that want to go on a lot of appointments are going to be like, hey man, that's a with it gal. Like, she knows what she's doing. That guy's got it going on. And the ones that are like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work, you just automatically get them to detract from you. Then you take that and you put it in your house. Then you take that and you tell your kid, hey, when I get in, and maybe if you don't have a kid, ready? my client, she was the #1 agent in the world for Century 21, Jack, for like 5 years in a row. Her name is Christina Martinez. Coached her forever. She's a dear friend, right? So when I got her to go to #1, you know what I did? You need to set a bold, crazy goal, but it can't be about you. It's got to be about someone else. Cause she was so established financially at that point in her life, never been married, no kids, spent every Saturday and Sunday at her church. And I said, what could you do for the church? That was the question I asked. What could you do for the church? She said, I'm going to think about it. Right. But 45 days pass and I'm as her coach, hey, I asked you that question 45 days ago. What are you going to do with the church? What did you come up with? She goes, I'm so glad you asked. She said, I wrote an offer on a lot yesterday. And I said, that has nothing to do with the church. What are you talking about? She goes, no. It's the lot next to the church. And I said, what's the vision? She said, I'm going to put a YMCA there and I'm going to donate it to the church. I was like, oh, I go, have you told your pastor yet? She said, no, I'm not sure how to mention it. I said, I think like next Sunday, you just raise your hand and say, pastor. She raised her hand in front of this huge San Jose, this big church, right? Huge congregation, raised her hand, pastor, I bought the land next door. I'm going to build a YMCA, like a rec center for the kids of San Jose. This is not Silicon Valley hoity-toity. She's on the other side of town. Yeah. You with me? This is a big deal, right? Big deal for the community. And it was a multi-million-dollar project that she had committed to. Well, guess what happens? First of all, like 79 agents quit the church that day because they're like, shit, she's going to get every referral out of this place.
I'm done.
that wasn't the goal. She put her ass on the line. Then we went back and we reverse engineered how many additional transactions she would have to do and how many appointments she would have to generate in order to make that happen. And then it was literally, like a 3-year countdown of we got to grow the business by this much. We got to do this many appointments. We got to bring in this much revenue. I got to put aside this much cash. We've already bought the land. We're going to get, construction loans. And 3 years later, here I am in San Jose. We're, we got the giant scissors out, right? And we're opening the doors. And she donated the entire thing to her church.
Wow.
Structure, numbers, math. If she called me and said, I just don't feel like making my calls today, I would say the children of San Jose don't give a shit. Make your appointments.
A higher calling, a purpose alongside of that structure, right?
Isn't it funny to say make a donation to a church and then say I don't give a shit in the same sentence?
It's probably not going.
Just keeping it real. Just keeping it real.
I love it.
I mean, for my listener out there who's like, I can't believe you said that. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm just keeping it real.
It's great, Tom. So like you're growing your, this is back in the day and maybe even today, like biggest pitfall in growing your coaching business.
Well, let's just say business, right? Biggest pitfall. I don't have any regrets. I have 1,000 mistakes. So I would say, let's take the world famous book, Good to Great, because it's just so simple. Get the right people on the bus, get them in the right seats, and then give some autonomy to go out and do what they want to do. Like every startup founder, CEO that I've ever met, myself included, you do everything in the beginning, right? Like pick up the trash, print it, type everything up, answer the phones, right? Like you everything in the beginning. The whole game of business, as the whole game of life is people. It's all about people. You go further, faster with people. You get the right people around you. You give them the autonomy. You get them inspired about the work they're doing. You get them aligned around the vision. So I would say, it's always that, right? The thing I would say to an experienced agent or founder today is recognizing, and this is just the hard truth, that the team that you have today in place probably won't get you to the next level unless they're willing to change their systems, change their structure, and elevate their standards. And it's okay. It's okay if people leave. It's okay. That's a hard one for people to accept. I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, human beings aren't pawns and you don't own them, right? They come into your life. You're the CEO. You serve them until they don't want that service anymore. And then they go find another CEO who hopefully she or he is smart enough to serve them in the next evolution of their career. And then maybe they go start their own business one day. And hopefully they're smart enough to realize that their employees don't work for them. They work for their employees. And if you just keep that mindset going and always be recruiting and always be, attracting talent, you're going to be fine. That, and I'd probably say the second thing is, I wish we would have adopted a management methodology that was more concrete, right, early on. It took us probably, so I'm 20 years into this, right? It took us probably a decade before we were able to synthesize and big shout out to like books like The 4 Disciplines of Execution, Measure What Matters, to remove all the guesswork out of the business, right? And instead, having weekly meetings where you're talking about the numbers and are we on or off track and what are we going to do? And, how's our team doing? What are the adjustments we need to make? Just having a management methodology, that's a really big one. And I don't care if you're a solo agent or you're running, as I am, like, call it, sub 420, independent contractors and teammates in, multiple states and countries, right? It's about having the right management methodology and realizing that like it's all possible through people. And if you're a control freak and you're trying to do it on your own, congratulations on being intentionally small.
Yeah. You're, when you become, and you are the business. I mean, that's a hard part for like a Tom Ferry who built a company named it Tom Ferry. That's like, or a 𝐥𝐤𝐤 business that calls it 𝐥𝐤𝐤. We got to empower those around us to help us grow this business. And that people thing. Yeah. People thing.
Yeah. It's all people. It's all, man, the whole game of life. I have been cultivating wonderful people in my life for 33 years. Like that's, if I had a real superpower, it'd be that, like the ability to cultivate mentors and friends, people that I used to look up to, Jack, that now I look eye to eye with, people that I used to be intimidated by. And now we just have conversations. And I, even today, I continue to strive for those. I was on the golf course a couple of days ago and literally, Hector, Von Miller is joining my golf club. Right. So, being a Rams fan, when he played for the Rams for 1 year and helped us win a Super Bowl. So like, I'm walking over to the putting green and I'm like, oh man, that's Von Miller. And I'm like, what's up, Von? And here's the response I got. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna have to work on this. Like, all right. Like I didn't, he doesn't give a shit that I'm Tom Ferry. He doesn't care. Right. I'm just another knucklehead guy who wants to talk to some football star. Yep. But I was like, okay, all right. I'll win that. I'll win him over. I'll get him. Like, we all need that challenge, right? Cultivating your financial people, cultivating the best relationship people, cultivating the right health and vitality people. As soon as we're done here, Jack, I'm walking right into my office, getting an IV drip, 250 cc's of NAD, and having a meeting with the greatest speech coach on the planet, who's a part of my cultivation of like the professionals that I have helping me, board of advisors and guest experts. And, it's all cultivating people, right? And here's the thing. It's not all them helping me. My whole game is I got to bring them 3 times the value. And if I just am always thinking about like, oh, I got to call Joe. What am I going to tell that guy? He started a little company called Realtor.com a long time ago, right? Sold it for $1 billion. What can I do to bring Joe value? Sometimes it's just reaching out and asking him this question. This is probably my best one. Hey man, you're helping people all the time. How are you doing? You know how many sighs I get, Jack, when I ask that question?
I just did it.
They're like, oh man, thanks, man. I know you mean I'm good. I'm like, no, man. Like really, like it's okay, man. How you doing? Like, you and I, we're bucket fillers. We fill buckets all day long. I'm like the gas station. People pull up and they're like, all right, Ferry, I'm on empty. Load me up. And I'm like, okay, get out there, go, right? But our buckets run on empty.
Yeah.
And we gotta, so I'm super mindful. The busiest people, I'm like, look, I know you're super busy, but like, how you doing? You okay? And like, when you have enough rapport and they're friends,
yeah,
right? Then they'll let their hair down and be like, oh my God, I'm in the middle of this lawsuit. I got this deal going and I got right. And sometimes the best thing we can do is put your damn phone down and just listen to someone. Really, really let them know that you hear them. That's powerful, especially for me, like trying to cultivate, more and more relationships, trying to raise, Jack, my own standards.
Yeah. So Tom, like,
I don't even remember the question you asked. Where did we go?
No, you're perfect. You're perfect. You addressed it. You're good. Like one myth about your industry that you want to debunk. And I'm going to talk specifically about real estate.
Easy. Ready? Not everybody can be a coach. So in 1991, right? My pops, myself, my brother, a guy named Steve Shull, and a few others, we create this new industry, right? And it was predicated on, professional sports, mentors, blah, 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 right? But what if I told you by around like 96, 97, like on a Tuesday, every therapist on the planet said, that's a better business model. Charge them on a monthly basis, and they got to show up and you can actually hold them accountable versus listening to their sob stories. If that's your therapeutic method, and say, okay, great, I'll see you next week. Like actually holding people accountable. And then by the time we got to like, I don't know, 2001, every manager was suddenly a coach. Every broker owner was suddenly a coach. So I wrote down, like, I don't know, I think it was like 2005 or 6, like the second year into our business. I said, if everybody's a coach, then nobody's a coach.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So instead of giving up on what every agent knows what I'm saying, when it's like, when you just feel like everyone's an agent, if everybody's an agent, nobody's an agent.
Right.
If everybody's number one, then nobody's really number one. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could be number one at something. I'm number one in this zip code last Tuesday, right? I mean, everybody could be number one. So it forces me to always say, hey, what is their degree of separation? What is it that they truly offer? What is their track record, right? What are their certifications?
Yeah.
Like, and even like in my space, and again, like I honor everybody that wears the badge. You with me? Everyone that puts on the badge and says, look, I'm in it to win it. Here's the thing though. If all the content, if everything you're teaching is what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm straight up with people. I DJ all the best agents content and I bring it out at the time in the right market, in the area that you like, the stuff that I talk about in Canada, I can't talk about in the US.
Yeah.
All the stuff I do in Europe, they just look at me and they're like, hey, don't try and westernize me, Ferry. Yeah. Right? You got to know like what's going on in Munich and what is not going on in Berlin. You got to be super conscious to like the tax rates in France, right? You got to understand in Portugal, which there's more real estate agents in Portugal. My buddy, Manuel and Beatrice, who own Remax of Portugal, they are the biggest company in all of Portugal. I don't mean in real estate. Number 2 is Microsoft.
Wow.
But the subtleties between the Portuguese versus the Spanish versus the Italians versus the Swiss, heaven forbid. How else do you get to know all that stuff unless you've got people in every one of those places?
I think it's like, and now like we're seeing an influx of coaching companies and coaches more than ever, just like an influx of real estate.
I'm not dogging them. I just I'm not dogging them.
Well, it's just like realtors, like we have an influx of realtors. We've seen when the pandemic hit, we saw the mass exodus, and then we saw a mass inflow,
massive number,
crazy amount like I've never seen before, probably what you haven't experienced.
Yeah.
And it was, again, probably have the same similar view that I have on the real estate professionals versus the coaches that are popping up all over the place.
So I feel like the way I'm coming across is I sound like a bitter jerk, and I'm not.
He's not.
Right. You know what it is? Too many people in our industry get burned, Jack.
Yeah.
This industry is, I deal with all these like venture capital, peeps, and because I invest in all these companies, right? And they're like, man, it just feels like an unlimited supply of new people coming in. You can sell them shit. And I'm like, man, don't say that. Like, this industry has given myself and so many millions of people so much. Yeah. What is more meaningful than home ownership? It's 17% of the GDP of the country. 17% is like, you buy a house and everything else that comes along with real estate. That includes commercial, like 5% of that of the 17 is actually like residential real estate. It is such a meaningful I mean, it's home ownership. It's shelter. It's a place to raise your family. And I just think too many people try and come into this space and just try and sell shit. And that's what drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's all the disruptors that come in with the technology to
eliminate agents, don't even get me started on that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, is the relationship important or not? We find that it typically is, or actually always is, I would think. But
all we have to do is look at every one of those companies that came out in the last decade and see where they're at today. The smart ones have all gone back to agent. Hey, agent. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't always going to be a percentage of the customer that, like, hey, tragically, someone in my family passes away and I've got to manage the transaction from across the state.
Yeah.
If there's an easy solution to get it done, iBuyer as an example, that phenomenon, which we know is not in 100% debunked, but certainly it's not at the velocity that it was at.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe that just takes a little piece of the for sale by owner market away. Like, I don't know, but I think fundamentally the real estate professional, keyword professional, sits at the hub. And if she can continue to scale her trust and her truth and her ability to serve more people, she can sell 30 homes a year. She can sell 30 homes a month. She can sell 30 homes a week, right? Like, that's the game today.
Yeah. Tom, like a new person comes into real estate and they're either looking to be a single agent or join a team, just maybe something that can move the needle quickly for them without being like the get rich quick mentality. Like, what can they do? And again, we shared a bunch of ideas, but just something that's simple.
So there's no right or wrong path, right? Join a team, go on your own. Now, there is a different success rate, right? There is a difference. So there's no right or wrong. Like, there's a ton of more people are pouring into the industry starting on their own than they are, Jack, starting on teams. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the success rate of a team that could provide you training, and I don't mean training like real time. Let's talk negotiations. Let's talk booking appointments. Let's talk how to do an open house. No, I want you to stand this way versus that way. And all the flags have got to line up. And we put a QR code on the door and here's why, and help me understand like real tactical training that makes somebody proficient.
Yeah.
So they can go out and write offers and get offers accepted. And then the mentoring side of it. But the kicker, I think the reason why so many teams have succeeded with new agents is lead flow. What's the single hardest thing about going into any business? Attracting clients. Why do most small businesses fail? They run out of money. Why? Because they didn't attract any clients. Don't attract clients, make no money, you're gone. I don't care if that's a dry cleaner, a real estate agent, a restaurant, insurance. It doesn't make a difference. The
Simple
whole
recipe.
game is client attraction. So the reason why these teams are winning, especially if they're arbitraging Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Zillow, HomeLight, Navy Fed, like there's so many of these, let's just call them portals, right? That are generating leads. So the people that do that, they're just going to have a significantly better shot than the person who's starting on their own. So the person that's starting on their own, what I'm going to tell them is first and foremost, this is a hard business. Right? Make no bones about it. But last time I checked, every business is hard. There's no easy business. You see all these ads on YouTube. Oh, I'll show you how to sell shit on Amazon and you'll make a fortune. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like everything is hard, right? Nothing worthwhile is easy. So if you're new, you literally have to run like 3 parallel plays simultaneously. The first one is you don't know anything about the market. Even if you live there, you don't know it as a real estate agent knows it. So if you're not looking at the MLS every single day and previewing property as often as possible through the lens of how do buyers view this, you're not relevant, right? So every day inside the MLS, and the hard part is in the beginning, you're like, okay, look, there's new listings, there's new sales, there's some price reductions, there's some closings, right? And I can do some look backs, but it's the ability to find the correlations, the things that Google doesn't tell customers. How are 4 bedrooms selling compared to 3 bedrooms, compared to 2 bedrooms, right? What pockets are selling the most? What school districts are selling the most, right? Like what price points are moving the most? It's finding the interesting nuggets, the correlations on pricing. Like my client, Andy C., who took one of his college sons and said, hey, like for a bag of weed, I'm kidding, but like, will you run this report for me? Will you guys help me out? You know what they did? He gave him 20 years of MLS data just inside the Silicon Valley, right? Around, think where the new Apple headquarters is.
Yeah.
And here's what they found. Home prices go up and down as Apple stock goes up and down. That was the most interesting correlation we found. It wasn't the amount of people that are moving into the US or leaving that area or startups. It was just as Apple stock went up and down, so did home prices by about a 2-week lag, which was really interesting. So imagine now the second part of that is now I've got to realize my job is to have meaningful conversations every day and even schedule lousy appointments, because a lousy appointment is better than no appointment. Our mutual friend, Lisa Chinati, when she went from like 6 to 83 sales in 1 year, right? She told me recently, she said, shout out to Lisa in Boston. She said, yeah, that year when I made that jump, I started buying Zillow leads and told myself every day, if I'm going to buy these leads, I've got to get an appointment booked every day. And I wouldn't go home until I booked an appointment. And people are like, how did you sell so many homes in that year? I bought some leads that were, top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. So you had to sort through which ones were ready. And most of them aren't, Jack. Most of them aren't. But she said, but I've got to get an appointment every single day. Now you're like, well, I can't afford that. Okay. Can you call everybody in your phone? Can you send them a screenshot of their home and say, what do you think about this price from Zillow? Right? Can you do that? Or if they rent, could you take one home near their rental, whether it's an apartment or a house, and say, I just saw this house on Zillow. What do you think about this price? All you're trying to do is create a meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
That's all, right? Can you hold an open house 6 days a week? Get another agent's open house, vacant, crappy, who cares? Hold it open 6 days a week. Knock on doors in the community every day. Make your phone calls from the open house. It's like you're working at a, I don't know, a tire store.
It's your storefront.
And you're just waiting for people to come in and say, hi, is this crappy house still for sale? Right? Like, it's been on the market for 10 years. Yes, it has. Happy to serve. How can I help? You know what I mean? Like it's this, which you've seen before, right? It's the $1 billion playbook, picking 2 or 3 things that I'm going to do, that I'm going to become good at. What is on the minds of a customer that's shopping an open house? What is on the minds of someone that's shopping on Zillow? What is on the minds of someone inside my database that's renting? What is on the minds of first-time buyers? And it's the curiosity. You said it earlier, to say what's on their mind. So one is, I got to know the market as much as I can know it. Number 2 is I've got to have meaningful conversations every single day, right? And number 3 is I've got to go on appointments. And I don't care, again, if they're lousy appointments. I don't care if it's, hey, Jack, I know you guys have no interest in selling. I'd love to just put together a CMA in your home. Come by, give you a little equity review, let you know what your home is worth, let you know the equity you're playing with. So what would be the best time for us to get together? Well, no, Tom, we really don't want to sell. I know, Jack, you don't want to sell. That's great. Let's just have a glass of wine, sip some tea, and let me walk you through the numbers. Even that is better than going home and, I don't know, watching old reruns of Oprah.
Well, it's an opportunity to ask for that introduction, because that's a lot of things. That's one of the big things we don't do in this industry, is just you meet somebody, they're either a homeowner or a renter, and there's a path to home ownership or selling their home, and just asking who should I be talking to? I'm trying to grow my business here, Tom.
Well, especially if you do like an equity review and you're like, so, hey, by the way, do you guys have any plans to pick up the house? Do you see yourself ever selling in the next 2 to 3 years, 5 years? What are your thoughts? Right? Let's look at what the market's doing. By the way, did you find this valuable, Jack? You did? Great. Who else do you know that might find this valuable? Did you find this valuable? Yes. I bet you're a lot like me, and a lot of other people would like to know the value of their home and how much equity they're playing with. And just like that, the simple truth is, this is a hard business. Every business is hard. Whoever has the most meaningful conversations, provides the most value, gets the most appointments, goes on the most appointments, gets the most no's, and gets a bunch of yeses. Period. End of story. That is the only job.
I think we end on that, Tom. I think you provided so much value to those out there. And again, Tom does have this incredible coaching company. And I certainly put the contact information there to reach out to him and his staff to connect with him and have a meaningful conversation to see what you're doing with your business. And if you're interested or committed to taking it to the next level, Tom has incredible coaches. I'm going to give a shout out to two of mine. I was first with Jared Davis, and now with the amazing K Fairchild.
Yeah.
Can I believe I called her K Fairchild? K's going to kick my ass.
She is going to kick your butt. And Jared, Jared Davis is in my office right now in Dallas, getting ready to go through some training. I mean, here's someone that built multiple offices, wildly successful agent, built multiple offices, sold them, now is diversified into multiple businesses. And one of them is he coaches some of the most successful teams on the planet. Kay built one of the biggest businesses in the Carolinas and then sold that business, became a coach with me, now is living in California. Like, it's the depth, right? It's the depth of your exposure. And Jack, I got to give a shout out to you, man. Like, you do so much for your network, your community, doing stuff like this when you don't have to. So big shout out to you, right, for being who you are and giving back. So thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I'm super grateful, Tom. So again, if this resonated with you, if it made sense, if it helped you, please obviously follow Tom Ferry. He's out there. The information will be there for you. Obviously at Tom Ferry, super simple. Again, Jack Lehr Podcast. Super grateful that I got to have the amazing Tom Ferry with me today. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it, man. Take care.